If history makes everyone unique, how do similar tools or myths pop up continents apart?
Ah, yes, that's the perfect transition to diffusionism. This school of thought tackled exactly that question, while the old evolutionists thought similar things must have been invented independently everywhere.
Like everyone inventing the wheel on their own.
Kind of, yeah. Diffusionists flipped that. They argued, maybe a bit cynically, that humans are often uninventive and lazy, meaning
Oh.
we tend to imitate solutions that already exist rather than constantly starting from scratch.
So an idea or a tool gets invented once, somewhere specific.
And then it spreads, it diffuses through things like trade, migration, contact, imitation. Think about pizza, right? Invented in Italy, now you find versions of it almost everywhere, but each place adds its own twist.
Like pineapple in some places. Controversial.
Haha, exactly. And several things affect how well an idea diffuses. First, relation and communication. Makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Groups that are closer talk more, share culture more easily, like customs blending across a border.
Sure.
Then there's need and desire. People are more likely to adopt something if they actually need it or see a benefit. If one village develops a great irrigation technique during a drought, nearby villages might copy it quick.
That seems logical. What else?
There's competition with older traits. New ideas often hit a wall if existing traditions are really strong and people are resistant to change.
Sure.
Think about slow progress on social reforms in very traditional societies.
Okay, that makes sense too. Resistance to the new.
And finally, respect and recognition. The people or culture introducing the new trait need to be seen positively or at least neutrally. If the source is disliked or distrusted, the idea might get rejected no matter how good it is.
And crucially, even when things do spread.
They almost always get modified. They adapt to fit the new cultural context. Like
Yeah.
parliamentary democracy came from Britain, but the way it works in India or Canada or Australia is different, adapted to local needs.
Right, not just a carbon copy.
Now, within diffusionism itself, there were different flavors, different schools of thought on how this spread actually happened. The British school is one of the earliest and maybe the most extreme.
Extreme how?
They were sometimes called Panegyptian or heliocentric because they basically believed everything important in civilization started in Egypt.
Seriously. Everything. Pyramids, sun worship, agriculture.
Pretty much. Figures like G.E. Smith and W.J. Perry looked at, say, megalithic monuments around the world, saw similarities, and just concluded, must be Egyptian influence spreading out.
That seems a bit simplistic.
Very. It was a very top-down, single-origin view. There was a slightly more moderate figure, W.H.R. Rivers, who actually did field work.
Okay, what did he find?
He talked about degeneration, the idea that cultures could lose complex skills over time, maybe if key people died off. He saw islands in Melanesia that used to build sophisticated canoes but lost the skill.
Interesting. So diffusion isn't always about gaining things. You can lose them too.
Exactly. And he also explained things like finding multiple different burial styles in one community by suggesting different waves of migrants had arrived over time, each bringing their own customs. Still diffusionist, but more grounded in observation.
But overall, the British school didn't last long, did it?
No, it faced heavy criticism pretty quickly. It was just too simplistic, too focused on Egypt and Europe, very ethnocentric. It ignored amazing independent developments in places like China or Mesoamerica.
And the whole humans are uninventive idea got shot down.
Yeah, archaeology kept finding evidence of independent invention all over the place. Plus, there was often an underlying colonial bias, sort of implying that advanced cultures gave civilization to lesser ones. New finds and better theories just moved anthropology beyond it.
Okay, so if the British school was too Egypt-centric, what about the German school of diffusionism? What was their angle?
They took a different path. Instead of one single origin point like Egypt, they proposed that cultural traits originated in various places, in what they called culture circles or Kulturkreis.
Culture circles, like zones of invention.
Kind of. Think of bundles of related cultural traits, maybe a certain type of tool, a specific myth pattern, a social structure originating together in one area, forming a circle. And then these circles would spread outwards, sometimes overlapping, creating layers of cultural influence over time.
Okay, so multiple origins spreading in waves. How do they try to prove this? It sounds complicated.
It was. They developed specific criteria. One was the form criterion from Friedrich Ratzel. He said, look for similarities that don't have an obvious functional reason.
Like what?
His classic example was decorative feathers on arrows. If they don't actually help the arrow fly straighter, but two different cultures put similar feathers on their arrows, that suggests borrowing, not independent invention for function.
Ah, okay. Non-functional similarities point to copying.
Exactly. Then Leo Frobenius added the quantity criterion. Basically, the more seemingly random similarities you find between two cultures, the higher the probability they had historical contact, diffusion, or migration happened. One similarity could be chance, but 10, less likely.
Got it. More coincidences mean less coincidence.
Precisely. Scholars like Wilhelm Schmidt tried to map these culture circles globally, classifying cultures into big categories, hunter-gatherers, early farmers, etc., and tracing how traits supposedly spread from these centers.
Do they have any surprising findings?
Schmidt did. He argued, quite controversially, that maybe monotheism, belief in one god, was the original religion, and polytheism, many gods, was actually a later development, a sort of degeneration that definitely flips the common narrative.
Wow, yeah, it does. Anything else?
He also highlighted the economic power women often held in early hunter-gatherer societies, linking it to matrilineal descent, contrasting it with later male dominance that often came with agriculture and warfare.
Interesting connections. But what were the problems with the German school?
Well, those culture circles were often pretty hypothetical. It was hard to pin down exactly where and when they started, and tracing their precise paths across continents was really difficult, often speculative.
And applying the criteria.
Could be subjective. How similar is similar enough? How many traits make it statistically significant? Plus, like the British school, they didn't always explain why diffusion happened, what motivated the spread or adoption of traits.
Okay, so British school, too simple, Egypt-focused. German school, multiple centers, complex layers, but hard to prove. What about the American school of diffusionism? How did they approach it?
Well, unsurprisingly, Franz Boas had a big influence here too. He looked at the German school's grand global schemes and basically said, that's too speculative, let's focus on what we can actually observe. Meaning, let's look at smaller local areas where we know people had contact. Let's study diffusion between neighbors.
Back to the practical, observable stuff.
Exactly. Remember how he rearranged museum exhibits, not by evolutionary stage, but geographically? What did that show? Nearby groups shared lots of traits. It strongly suggested diffusion happens most readily between neighbors because, well, culture is learned, and it's easiest to learn from the people you interact with.
This led to the culture area concept, right? Grouping cultures by region?
Yes. Identifying regions where cultures shared similarities due to similar environments, and, crucially, interaction and borrowing between neighboring groups. Think about customs shared between, say, Kerala and Tamil Nadu in India, much more likely due to direct contact than shared customs between Kerala and Peru.
Makes sense. Focus on the local connections. Who are the key figures here?
Clark Whistler was important. He mapped out culture areas in the Americas based primarily on how people made a living, their subsistence strategies, like the bison area for Plains Indians, the caribou area for Eskimos, and so on.
And he had that age area hypothesis.
Right. The idea that traits found over a wider area are probably older because they've had more time to spread, while newer traits would be more concentrated near their origin point.
But that hypothesis got challenged pretty quickly, didn't it?
It did, because traits don't all spread at the same speed. Think about technology versus religious beliefs. Tech might spread faster. Barriers like mountains or oceans slow things down. And the center of innovation isn't fixed. It can move.
Like your Christianity example started in Jerusalem. Vatican's the center now.
Precisely. So Alfred Kroeber, again, refined things. He worried about cultures vanishing, what they called salvage ethnography, trying to record things before they disappeared. He replaced Whistler's static center with a more dynamic idea. The cultural climax.
Cultural climax, like the peak point.
Yeah, the area within a culture region where the culture was most intense, most complex, most developed at a particular time. And that climax point could shift. Think of maybe Florence during the Renaissance as a cultural climax for art.
Okay, a dynamic center. And Kroeber's superorganic idea fits here too.
Absolutely. It reinforces how culture, once established in an area, influences people, often passively. Fashion trends spreading, the preference for certain jobs in a society, like maybe government jobs in India, as one source mentioned, it shapes choices.
And it explains local adaptation, again like the Aloo Tiki burger in Indian McDonald's, or how India adapted British democracy. Not a direct copy, but fitted to the local superorganic context.
Exactly. But the American school wasn't perfect either. Critics said culture areas are ultimately just mental constructs anthropologists create. The borders are always fuzzy in reality.
People don't stop sharing ideas just because they cross a line on a map.
Right, and by focusing so much on local diffusion, they sometimes missed the bigger picture of how ideas could travel globally, maybe skipping over regions. The center inventor, periphery borrower idea was also often too simplistic.
So lots of different takes on how cultures change and share ideas. What's the big picture, bringing it all together?
I think the overarching theme, the thing that unites historical particularism and all the diffusionist schools, despite their differences, is that they all rejected that simple, straight line idea of cultural evolution.
That latter model Boas fought against.
Exactly. They all stressed in their own ways that cultures are unique, integrated systems shaped by complex factors, history, environment, psychology, and crucially, contact and borrowing from others.
And understanding that helps you, the listener, look at the world differently, right? When you see something similar in two cultures, don't just assume it's the same thing with the same meaning.
Right. Food, marriage customs, whatever they might look alike on the surface, but the why and the how, the history behind it, the social needs it fulfills could be totally different.
So always look for that context. Practice that cultural relativism. Understand, don't just judge.
That's the core lesson, I think.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. From Boas insisting on unique histories with historical particularism to the diffusionists, trying to map how ideas actually spread through the eyes of the British, German, and American schools.
It's quite a journey through anthropological thought, and it leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, especially today.
What's that?
Well, in our hyper-connected world, with the internet, social media, ideas spread globally almost instantly. How can these older ideas about diffusion, culture circles, adaptation, maybe even cultural climax, help us understand our own cultural landscape, which is changing so incredibly fast?
Are we seeing new kinds of diffusion, new kinds of cultural configurations forming online right now?
Maybe. Something to think about as you navigate the world. Keep observing, keep questioning those cultural nuances around you.
Great thought to end on. Keep exploring.